Bob Masland comes from an impressive sales background, developed and honed over 3 decades. Amongst other positions, he has been a manufacturer's representative for companies based outside of the U.S., has sourced product overseas for domestic customers, and has regularly had to rejigger his business approaches in the face of rapidly changing economic conditions. On top of everything else, he is nearly a single-digit handicap golfer. Bob, welcome to The Language of Business.
You're very kind, Greg, very kind.
So it is so much easier and cheaper to communicate with international contacts today, but yet so many people still seem wedded to regular in-person meetings. Why is this the case?
There's always been a feeling that you need to look someone in the eye and sort of, first of all, find out what their business is. Sometimes you meet people from international places and they're working out of a closet. I mean, you really have to see that there's some substance behind it. But more important is to set a goal with deadlines for sampling, production, delivery. I mean, these are the types of basic building blocks. Americans are very impatient. If we order something, we want it immediately. And we can't worry about holidays, and we can't worry about various other items that come across in the business world. So the key is to listen to what products people want to have, give them a clear time frame of when they can manufacture it, when they can put it on a boat and deliver it, and then we're happy.
Even with the best of intentions, in-person meetings can only still take place periodically. How do you effectively and positively support this interaction between these trips?
I think the best thing to do is to accumulate a variety of issues that you want to discuss, be they delivery, quality, new products. When I first went to Japan, it was very interesting that there were no women in any of the offices. I mean, that's not the case in America. So you had to sort of sort out what the local customs were. But the bottom line is that you need to see what they have and then how they can help you. From a creative standpoint, I think a lot of the companies can do more than what they're doing. I think from a development of product, color, styling, it's fascinating. In Japan right now, there's a whole artisanal movement going on with American culture. They're bringing out Levi's and old. So you like people to have some kind of, in the home furnishings market where I compete, quality is key, but also you have to have a fine eye for color, a fine eye for detail, and those are the items that you don't want corners cut. You want the full product being manufactured.
So you keep mentioning Japan, which is quite apropos, since our first guest is from Japan and mentioned that maintaining face and supporting the relationship are often as important as the business transaction itself. In your career, most of your business has been outside of Asia, however. So without these cultural norms, how do you determine whether you're really able to trust somebody?
I think the proof is in the delivery. The proof is in the quality of the product. You know, I think that everyone is very tolerant of the difficulty of transportation, although it's gotten a lot better. But quite frankly, if you've ordered something and it doesn't come in right, many people don't want to take responsibility for it, and then you run into some problems. I mean, you can, but the bottom line is the good suppliers are people who spend the time creating the product, stand behind it, and make it work from there.
You're watching The Language of Business. I'm Greg Stoller. We're talking about international sales management with Bob Masland, a seasoned business executive. Traditional business wisdom, Bob, supports customer diversity to avoid succumbing to the 80-20 rule. But supporting so many different international customer relationships could become expensive and impractical. What are your thoughts on this?
I think that, particularly in the United States, we have a very value-oriented society. I mean, you look at a Walmart, and yet in the same market that Walmart competes in, you have Tiffany and higher-end goods. That little niche, that little area of the high end is where I like to be, but you still have to have value along with the quality that goes with it. So I think that as a manufacturer, either in China or in Japan or Korea, if you have a product that has all the right stuff, people will buy it. They buy actually from me. They don't buy from the end user. So you have to have the trust in the product that it's going to stand up to everything. And there's always a learning curve. There's always the first few orders don't quite come in on time. It's Chinese New Year. I mean, there's things that happen in the process that make it difficult. But the important thing is that the sample that someone sees, that's what they're going to get.
Anything endemic to doing business in the UK that you've picked up over the years?
It's interesting. When I first started out in business, I sold clothing down on Newbury Street. And the British, we had these beautiful rugby shirts. The only problem was we wanted them in December for Christmas, and they showed up in July. So there's something seasonal that you have to, I mean, there are difficulties as far, and that learning curve has since been taken care of. The British goods, again, they are natural fibers. Sheep have to grow. Cotton has to be brought in. But in general, they have a very high quality in the textile area, a very high quality of production in that area.
Unfortunately, if things don't go well, in the U.S., contract non-renewal and termination are relatively straightforward affairs, as most industries have multiple competitors.
Right.
The landscape internationally, as I'm sure you well know, is often quite different, where there are fewer suppliers in the same industry or limited countries to source from. How do you know when it's time to make a change from one supplier to another?
Well, it's very interesting you say that, Greg, because at one time in the carpet industry, which is one that I know pretty well, there were probably 40 or 50 fine old line suppliers, and then they realized you could make carpet very inexpensively with a Singer sewing machine, and that immediately made America the low-cost producer of the world. Since that day, in the fine woven quality goods, places have been shutting down left and right. Where there once were 30 or 40 people making a type of weave, they're down to 4 or 5. So in some ways, the manufacturer in today's world has a very strong position as long as they have the right vendor to present their product to market.
So as a manufacturer's representative, you're uniquely positioned between the factory and the customer. In a pinch domestically, you could always bring a factory executive to the job site or to your office in order to solve a problem, but internationally this would probably be unrealistic unless it's a huge error or something gone wrong. How do you handle disgruntled customers then on an everyday basis?
Well, first I answer the phone, and you try to go out and assess the situation, find out what the demands of the customer are. I mean, if they can live with it with an allowance, or if they need it replaced. We want to keep the lawyers out of this. And generally, if we need to, we can air freight. They're very good air freight situations to get the correct product to market. And right now, with one of the companies I'm working with, it's going through that growing pain until they can get inventory into the States. And I'm happy to report they're doing much better now. So the aggravation factor is much less than it was earlier in their process.
With your late night phone calls and harried negotiations with suppliers and customers, do you ever get any chance to play golf?
I do. In fact, one of the best things that ever happened, or maybe the worst thing, I'm not sure, is when I was in Detroit working on a joint venture with a Japanese company, I got a hole-in-one, and always they ask you how bad was the shot. It was pretty bad. I bounced off a hill, ran across the green, but it was a very long night. Apparently that's almost like winning the lottery and a lot of other things, so it was a very late night. So for many years I was introduced as the man with the hole-in-one. So
great.
Haven't had one since, but...
Thank you, Bob.
Okay.
Bob Masland on being an international sales representative. This is the language of business. Inbound commerce for translation services was the focus of segment number 1, and in segment number 2, we looked at successfully building a business as a manufacturer's representative. What if you're an entrepreneur starting from scratch, however? You not only have to source the product internationally, but also find and manage the customers domestically. We'll find out from Alan Lunder next on The Language of Business.